Welcome to the Mommy on a Mission podcast. I'm Mariana, your host and the #1 best-selling author of Mommy on a Mission, a guide towards healing, self-discovery, and walking in confidence. As a dedicated life coach, wife, mom, yaya, and most importantly, daughter of the King, I am passionate about empowering multifaceted women just like you. In each episode, we dive deep into transformative topics that help you reignite your passion and purpose. My unique approach is designed to help you overcome the fear of external expectations and create the space and time you need for both increased job satisfaction and personal growth. Join me on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment as we explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and actionable insights. Together, we'll navigate the complexities of life and emerge stronger, more confident, and truly aligned with our deepest desires. Welcome to the Mommy on a Mission podcast, your go-to resource for living a more purposeful and fulfilling life. So grab your taza of café y vamos a platicar. As I mentioned in the introduction, I have a wonderful woman of God who is going to talk to us a little bit about her testimony, how she still continuously is walking in obedience into her transformational story. So I have with me today Denise Rodriguez, who I had the privilege of hearing her powerful testimony at a women's conference. I want to say it was back in December, January, around, when was it?
I think it was December, maybe.
I want to say it was December. I think that's when I heard your testimony. I was a vendor. So Denise, tell us a little bit about yourself. So what is it that you like to do? What do you like to do for fun? What do you like to eat? And so I was very blessed to have heard your story. So good morning, Denise, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone that'll be tuning in. It is a privilege. Thank you so much. And yes, it's great how God, joined us together and what he does and how he appoints us in different people's lives. So it is an honor to be here. Thank you.
Testimony. You have 4 babies. You have 4 children, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have 5, so we're similar in that. I think big families are awesome. In talking though, just briefly before we got on the podcast, I was sharing with you that our stories are very, very similar, since that we are both survivors of domestic violence and how we were stripped away from just about everything. But talk to me a little bit about your story. Tell me a little bit about who you are, what you've gone through. We're going to talk about where you're seeing yourself next.
Life is a learning lesson. Mm-hmm. I got married at 19 years old. I had my first daughter at 16. Mm-hmm. So that marriage was something that probably should have never happened. I actually heard God tell me not to marry him, but because I was so new in Christ, I was just like, nah, this isn't God telling me. I have 2 kids already. There's no way God would tell me not to marry the father of my kids, right? I already knew that he was abusive, but I met him very young. I was like 16. So he's all I knew. I was raised by grandparents. So they were it was like my grandfather was strict, but my grandmother was like my best friend. So I had that spoiled mentality, you're not going to tell me what to do kind of thing, so I visualized my relationship with God kind of like a daddy and daughter thing, daughters fight with their dad, we don't get our way, we kind of, whatever, so that's kind of what my relationship was when I first came to Christ. I was like, no, that's the enemy telling me not to marry him. And little did I know, literally the same day that I married him, he went home and got drunk. He tried to kill himself. And I knew in that moment that I messed up. I knew in that moment that was God telling me no. The abuse got worse because, we're fighting a spiritual battle. So little did I know that I was going to learn so much in such a short period of time on how to exercise my authority, but also learn to be humble and quiet. And that ended. I got divorced. And when I got divorced, I was angry with God. So I hurried up and tried to fill myself with, I was in fear, because he got arrested and we got divorced immediately because I had to get a protective order. So I immediately just hurried up and tried to, feel better, and not searching for anyone, but somebody came into my life and messaged me and caught my attention. I wasn't expecting anyone, I was telling myself, I'm mad at God. I'm not going to talk to God. I'm not going to talk to no one. I don't want any relationship. I don't want anything to do with no man. I was angry. And this gentleman, he approached me with such kindness. From what I know now is called love bombing.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's familiar with that term, but that's exactly what he did. He love bombed me. At the very beginning, I didn't know, but I was vulnerable. So I gave him my attention. My ex came after me again, slashing my tires. The gentleman was at my home already, so it became a trauma bond because now this man was like, I'm gonna defend you. I'm gonna have your back. He's not gonna do nothing to you. So my eyes, my whole self now focused on a man and not God. My whole focus became about this man because he was giving me everything that my husband didn't give me at that time, my ex-husband at the time. He gave me everything, all the attention, the love, the care. He took care of my kids like they were his own. He was like immediately like it felt like God sent. Little did I know that his true self was going to come out.
So how long were you married to your first husband?
We got married in 2015. So we were only married for like 5 years,
Okay.
but together for 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how soon after your divorce did you meet the second person?
Literally in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The enemy did not wait.
Oh,
He
yeah.
knew exactly what I wanted, what I needed, and I was vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I my
I was asking that question because, again, when I was talking to you earlier, I was telling you that our stories sound very similar because, just like I've shared in my book, I was 17 years old when I first got married. I lived with my grandparents as well. Got married at the age of 17. I didn't have my first baby until I was 19. By 22, I was divorced. And then at 23, I meet my second husband, who was the abuser. And just like you, it was like the red flags were there.
Mhm.
I chose to ignore those red flags.
Yes.
And it was they know how to groom you. Now my first husband, it wasn't abusive or anything. We were just both very, very young. I was ready to get out of the house. I was a very rebellious person at the time, very confused, very hurt. Like you
Yeah.
know God. I knew there was a God. I just didn't know God. And I didn't
Yes.
know what God wanted for me. Growing up, there was a lot of things about my life that was all over the place. Just let me put it that way.
Didn't make sense. Yeah.
And then so I was out and about doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing, just
Yes.
no structure. I felt like nobody's watching, nobody's paying attention. I'm just going to go out and do whatever I want to do. And I'm going to come home whenever I feel like coming home, whatever. And I still managed to go to school. But then I was in high school still now as a junior year's done. And then I get married. My senior year, I'm a married woman in high school. Well, I didn't even get to finish school. And so again, I was with this person for 5 years, married to him for 5 years, and then we get divorced. And then I leave and I move to San Antonio, Texas. And so when I go and live in San Antonio, lo and behold, I meet my second husband.
Mm-hmm.
And with him, everything seemed like it was wonderful. Again, very charismatic. He loved to dance. He was a jokester, always gave me compliments, all of the things that I was seeking or wanting to see. Yet there were some red flags.
Yep.
I completely chose to ignore. I didn't want to see any of those. But little did I know that he was hiding some truths about himself. I am pregnant now with our son. And it was then that little by little,
some hidden truths were starting to come out. And one of those being that he was not divorced like he said he was. He was, in fact, still married. And so it's like, what's
Yeah.
going on here, right? I mean, it's like, what are you doing? That like, and when did that happen for you? Like, when did you realize things about him?
Oh man. So like you said, sis, the red flags were there. First and foremost, I've always been a woman to work and take care of myself, take care of the kids, take care of myself. So when I got out of that, marriage, I had my own home, I had my car. He didn't have anything. He had two cars, but he was living with his parents. So that should have been red flag number one. I didn't bother asking him why he was living with his parents. No offense to anyone, but at our grown age, he has two kids as well. We should have something, something comfortable for our children. So he moved in with me right away, like no questions asked, just came and lived with me, like immediately. It was like you said, when I got pregnant, I had a miscarriage actually. I miscarried our first kid.
Oh my God,
And
so did I.
and sis, I should have known better. I should have known better right then and there. He treated me different. He wasn't as happy. We were trying. And when I told him that I found out that I was pregnant, I didn't see any joy. It was just kind of like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
And it made me feel like, like where's all the happiness, the joy, you know that you've been giving me. Like, and I told him, I said, are you not happy? And he was like, no, I'm happy. And I was like, okay. And that was actually the first time I ever miscarried a child, so it was like a big deal for me. We At first we didn't know that was going to happen. So going to the doctor and like just seeing his behavior, like he was starting to like hide his phone a little bit. He was just distancing himself, and I was like, what happened to this man that I could talk to about everything? Like I could tell my feelings to, I can cry to. Like I was being vulnerable, and he wasn't receptive anymore. It was like, I don't know what it was. Something switched, like a switch. He
Yeah.
just became different. And so nothing abusive yet. It was just more like I noticed him being distant. So I want to say I miscarried within 2 months. But those 2 months, like I said, I was sick, so I would be in the room and he was just over there in the living room playing games, you know, uh, helping the kids, dinner and stuff. Like he was helpful, but there was no like intimacy, like on a level of like comfort. He was not comforting me.
Yeah.
There was no excitement, there was nothing. It was like I was like, man, am I in a dream? Am
Mhm.
I in a bad dream? Like I'm about to have his kid and I don't feel happy.
Right.
So when we got the news that I was miscarrying, he didn't even cry. And I know that not everybody's a crier. That's okay. But he had been very vulnerable with me. So when I noticed that he didn't cry with me, I was like, something's not right. This isn't cool. Like I feel very alone. I
Mm,
feel very alone in this
I
moment.
can resonate with
We're living together, but you're inconsistent right here while I'm with you in the same room. This is crazy.
that because I remember again, the very first time. So we met, it was in October. And then shortly after I find out I'm pregnant, and in December, I miscarried. And
I miscarried December 1st. Yeah.
now we didn't live together that back then because he had his own. We both, and it's just crazy how that happened, but we both had happened to move to San Antonio around the same time. It wasn't until months later when both of our leases were about to be up, and it was then that he decided, we should move in together. And I'm like, okay, again, mind you, I don't even know that he's still married. And then once we moved in, lo and behold, I'm pregnant now with our what's going to be our second baby to get, because the first one we miscarried. And that's when I found out about the ex-wife. And then I learned that she too was pregnant. So now we don't know if the baby that she's carrying is his baby or not, because it turns out at some point they had been seeing each other even while he and I were talking. And mind you, we lived in separate places. So it was just like this big thing, like I said, all of these things started to surface. Well, and when the baby was born, they did a DNA test and found out that the baby was not his. They get divorced. And so now here we are. My son now is born in May. And then we didn't get married officially until November of 99. And then next thing you know, I'm now pregnant with our third baby, so so we had two living children together. In the midst of all of that, behaviors were showing up. The abuse had not yet started, because we both know abuse is gradual. It doesn't happen right away, but attitudes change. There's distancing, or they make excuses as to why they can't do certain things. And sometimes there would be nights that he wouldn't show up. But again, the red flags are there. Then we ended up moving out of the apartment and going into a house. Well, now, mind you, yes, he was making money, but I had money myself. And so a lot of the things that we were able to purchase was based off of my money that I had. So I just remember, that a lot of the things that we would have was because of me. Fast forwarding, I'm pregnant now with our daughter, and he has to go into rehab. His reasoning for going to rehab was because he was caught taking, I think it was like, he says it was like a antibiotic or something, but it was in somebody else's name. Now you're living with this man. You had a miscarriage. Did y'all ever have children together?
Yeah, we have 2 kids together. That's my 3-year-old and my 1-year-old.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
When did the abuse start to take place? When did those things start? Because like I said, I know it happens gradually. So when did that begin? When did you realize?
Yes. Ooh. Honestly, the abuse started probably right after I found out that I was pregnant with our second son.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because we had a short period of time where we had broken up. That was when I was trying to submit to God, and God had given me a home. He had given me a car again, a new start. But I was so afraid of being alone. I wasn't ready yet. Mentally, I wasn't ready. I thought I was, but I wasn't, because I was still soul tied to him. So when God put me in that isolation, I freaked out. I completely freaked out, and I ran back to him and I begged him to take me back. And it didn't take much begging, but he was on drugs that night and he was drinking. And I admitted to him that I was seeing someone, and that I didn't want no one but him, because I wanted my family. And that night we decided that we were going to get back together and have a baby to fix things. Again, the enemy infiltrated my mind. I was like, this is it. I'm gonna have another kid. Guys love you more when you have their babies. So silly old me, I get pregnant immediately. Once we find out that I'm pregnant, all of a sudden I need a DNA test, because you were seeing someone else, weren't you? He starts accusing me of things, and he's never done that before. He's like, he's throwing it in my face pretty much. And we're at this point, we're living in a hotel, because God stripped me of everything. He took away the house, the car. As soon as I got back with this man, God took everything away. I lost my job, I lost my car, and this man lost his job. I'm pregnant. We're living in a hotel that we can't even pay for. Honestly, I couldn't even remember how we paid for it. I lost my kids, because I was not about to have them in a hotel. They knew that I took care of myself and them, but I was not about to let them be in that hotel with me. So I had my little son that me and him had. Yes, but my 2 oldest, I sent them with their dad. And I had to have that hard conversation with him and tell him, I don't know how long we're going to be here, but I need you to take care of the kids. So thankfully, their dad took on that role of taking care of them full time. But the abuse really started right after that pregnancy test came back positive. He was just, you're cheating. This isn't my kid, but I'm going to take care of you because that's all I have. We only have each other now. You lost your kids. It was so mentally draining. It was so tiring hearing his outbursts, But on my birthday, exactly 2 years ago, I found out that he was still speaking to someone. He was still actively intimate with this someone, because her boyfriend actually reached out to me through Messenger Facebook, and he gave me the whole spill, gave me all the tea. He was like, is this so and so, your husband? I was like, no, he's not my husband. He's like, well, I have something to tell you. He's seeing my wife. And I was like, so she's married? This woman is married? And he's like, yes. And I mean, like, sis, details that would make your heart go to your stomach. And I was in disbelief. I was broken. I was in that hotel trying to keep it together because I was like, I'm about to have another kid with this man. How could I do this?
Yeah, no, and I can, again, it's in just having this conversation, it's reminding me so much of the things that I had endured, right? Because like you, my daughter is inborn, so both my babies, the two in the middle, are 17 months apart. And but once my daughter was born, so she was born on October, by January, by this point, the abuse had already started. Being actually pregnant with him, this is how I learned how into his addiction that he was in, because once I was pregnant with my daughter, there was drug dealers that called in the middle of the night and threatened to kill me and the kids if he didn't pay up. And I was like, what? And so there was cameras inside. They could see me. I didn't even know there was cameras inside.
Oh,
They had
goodness.
my house. Not like the kind that we have now, right? The homes,
Yeah.
back then. So they could see what I was doing, what I was wearing, where I was at, where my babies were. And so that scared the crap out of me. So then later on, I have my daughter. So I'm trying to leave. So this is the first time that I'm trying to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I leave, run away. I come back to my hometown of Galveston. I'm coming here. I find a job, whatever. And he found me. So he was just trying to see where I was at. And then he found me. By this point, I already had my own apartment here in Galveston. And then he moves in. He said things, things were going to be different. He was going to change. And it's good for a month. And
Mm-hmm.
then it starts all over again. So by this point now, I had to make a decision, because not only was he abusing me, but he was starting to verbally abuse my oldest. And I knew that this man was on drugs. I knew that so the two kids that we had together, because he would always threaten me with the kids. You're not going to leave me. I'm going to take the kids, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, I'm having to make that drive to Austin, Texas, and talk to his dad. And I released my oldest son to his dad,
Mm-hmm.
because
Wow.
I wanted to protect him. And that's when I knew that was going to be the last time. I felt it in my heart that was going to be the last time my son was going to officially live with. And as a mom, that's really hard, right? And so now my son is living with his dad. I've got my two. In 2003, the ex-husband is calling me and telling me that I've got to, I'm coming back to him. And we moved to Louisiana. 8 months later, he loses his job. Now you've got me, like, we're constantly fighting now, constantly going back and forth. He's constantly beating me. I'm trying to defend myself. I moved to Oklahoma City, and this man, for the very last time, beat me. And then this was one of the worst ones that I had experienced. And I remember going to church, beat up, crying. I go to my closet when I got back from church and I said, Lord, surely this is not the life that you want me to have. Help me find a way to get out of this. God did open because, he was a binge user. So he would use and then he'd be okay for a little bit. And then as it was starting to wear off, then he had to go back and use again. So it'd be like like every 2 months he would start to binge use, he would be fine for a month and then it'd binge use again. And in one of those binges, so I knew that when he was going to be binging, I wouldn't see him for about a week or two. So in that, when he would be missing for a day, I knew that was then. And that's when I had started to create a plan to leave. And when that happened, I moved into this 1-bedroom apartment, me and my 2 babies. My oldest one is living with his dad. And I'm working a job that pays $9 an hour. I'm on WIC. I'm on food stamps. I'm on Medicaid, making $9. Yeah. And then decided to go back to school. And then that's when things started to transition, but it wouldn't be over yet, right? Because there's still after effects of all of these things that also catch up with you, because then that's when healing is starting to take place. Or, now you've got this baby, you find out that you already knew it was his, but now you know that he's in this relationship.
Oh man. I told myself that the best thing for me to do was to keep it inside. I wasn't going to bring it up. I was like, I literally felt in that moment, this is what you get. This is God punishing me. If I tell him, I don't have nowhere to go. I had no provision. I had no job. I had no money. I just thought to myself, I'm just going to take it. I'm not gonna tell him nothing. I'm just gonna keep it to myself. But I know what he's doing. I was literally, like you said, I had completely lost my identity. I completely lost my mind at that point. To be okay with that was not okay. So me thinking that I'm gonna be strong enough to hold it in, hormonal, pregnant, everything. No, ma'am, it did not happen how it came out. We went back to the home to try to get my stuff at that home that I had, and the people changed the locks. So I ended up breaking into the house and trying to retrieve my belongings. And while we were in there, I can't really remember what we were arguing about, but what I know is that he said something that really got to me, and I just boom, just lashed out. I knew in that moment I was not myself. I completely just went off. I grabbed the phone, I threw my phone, I was throwing things. I was just like, how could you do this? Like, how could you hide this from me? And he was just stunned. He didn't say a word. He just watched me. You know how in those cartoons they just hold the forehead of a person and they're doing this,
yes,
like aggressively? That was me. I felt like out of body experience. That's how I felt spiritually. That's probably how I looked. Just letting loose, doing nothing, absolutely nothing. It did not penetrate him. He didn't have any remorse, and it made me even more mad. And all he could say was, I don't know what you're talking about. And I had full proof. The girl's husband messaged me. We FaceTime. He told me everything. So now in return, he's like, oh, her husband messaged. So you were talking to her husband now. So you must be sleeping with him now. So now he flipped it, right? You see what happens there? They flip it on you. He flipped the script. Now he's mad at me. So he broke my phone. He grabbed my phone and broke it into pieces. So now I couldn't contact anyone. My sister, my kids, no one. I didn't have a phone now. Because that's what he was, before he got physical, it was always breaking my phone or throwing stuff at me, or, so it was always verbal and just,
Gradually.
yeah, it's, and I was just like, wow, I can't believe this. So, in my head, I'm stuck. I felt stuck. And I remember we went back to the hotel and I just got on my knees and I couldn't even pray. I couldn't even remember how to pray. I was just so broken. And I said, God, there has to be more for me. This isn't what you want for my life. Help me, because I don't want to lose myself. I already feel like I lost myself, but I need you, like, please. Like, in that moment, all I could think about was like, how am I going to do postpartum? Like, all I could think of was like, you're going to get depressed. I don't want to get depressed. So that was always my prayer. Right after that moment, I was continuously, God, keep me sane. God, keep me happy. God, keep me joyful. God, show me your ways, show me your heart. Don't let my heart grow hard. That was my ultimate prayer. Don't let my heart grow hard, because I don't want to go back. So I rededicated my life to Christ by myself in that hotel restroom. And I was like, this is it. I cannot allow this man to break me. I've been broken before, and I'm not going to let it happen again. So it intensified. He eventually got abusive. So after the hotel, we ended up moving into, one of my cousins one of her neighbors had like a little shack that he was renting out. Little did I know that man was also on drugs. But we went because we'd rather go somewhere else than this hotel now. So we moved there. And that's when he was like leaving me, like, for a long time. I didn't have a phone. So I didn't know when he was going to come back home. And I'm just there, like, sick with my son. There's no food. We probably only had like noodles, I think, and eggs. So every day, noodles and eggs, noodles and eggs.
Yep.
And I was like heavily sick. I had HG the whole pregnancy, so I couldn't eat anything. So I'm miserable. I could barely move. I had no energy whatsoever. But in that moment, like, I was still like, God, you're gonna help me. You're gonna sustain me. You're gonna help me keep my composure. And surely he would come home and just straight to bed. Didn't talk to me. Didn't tell me how his day was going. Didn't ask me how I was doing. It was just like we were just roommates at this point, like no communication, no phone. Like, literally, I think about how crazy it was that I had no phone. It was just me and my son all day. I'm by ourselves, just a bed, no furniture, no TV, just us two, like nothing. And eventually we moved into his older brother's home. And that's when the abuse got physical. I guess he had like an ego trip, because I was getting so tired of his inconsistency. He lost that job again. So he's used to being baby, always getting a handout from family. Just, we're going to be okay. We could just go live with my brother. And I was like, we have so many kids. Like, what do you mean? Like, we need our own home. We need something for our children. I don't want to live at no one's house. And so I was getting tired. I was like, I don't want to live there. I'm sick. They have a house full of kids and I don't want to be in the way. I don't want to, barge in, and here we are again, because we lived with them previously too. So
Still in
he didn't like
itself, that is still a form of couch surfing.
Yeah.
It's not your place. You're living with somebody, you're living at somebody else's place, and now you're couch surfing, which is basically homeless.
Yeah.
Because
literally.
And I say that because that was my story too. Moving back to Galveston, I'm couch surfing. I'm living with family.
Mhm.
They get tired of me, then I'd go live with another family member, and then
Yeah.
I'd go live with another, and then I just kind of rotated between all of them.
Yeah.
And so when did you decide enough was enough?
I think I had decided when he really got physical that time. I think I was like, you know what? When he got physical for the first time like that at his brother's house, and nobody came to my defense, family was there, and I was being told that I was part of the problem. And I was like, man, I can't do this. I need to make a change. I need to really get my life together, because I feel crazy now. At this point, I'm like, am I the problem? Like, is it really me? Like, am I really provoking these men to anger to where they want to hit me? So now that I'm seeing that he's doing something that he swore he would never do, it literally, like, it reminded me, it took me to a dark place where I had already got out of, that I thought I got out of. So when he brought me back there, something in me was like, no, there's going to be a way out. When you have the baby, you're going to make a plan and it's going to come together. That was really when I said, I'm done.
Yeah. And that's a hard decision to make because we see oftentimes how, especially, and I think one of the things that's different between us and other women is when we start to build a relationship with God and we start to learn that we don't have to do things by ourselves. And what I mean by that is there were days where I felt weak. I felt I didn't have enough strength. I felt like there was a lot of darkness around me, like I was never going to see clear light or anything. And I just felt like the world was just closing in on me. And I really clung on to scripture. And the scripture that I clung on to a lot was Philippians 4:13 that says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And it was like constantly repeating that over and over and over because I felt like, how am I going to do this? And then if you think too long, you'll out-talk yourself from doing things. So I had to learn to just take action and not think about the what if, to then reading books and then really diving into reading God's word and being on fire for his word and really just truly trusting him. If I didn't fully trust in him, then yeah, I probably would have gone crazy because as it is already, I'm fighting depression. I'm fighting anxiety. I'm fighting, panic attacks. I'm already fighting all of these things. So if I didn't cling on to God, then who the heck was I going to cling on to?
Seriously.
When was that day that you decided, or when was that bold day that you said, I'm leaving and I'm not going to look back?
Honestly, that moment happened when I met that lady that gave me a phone number to a woman's shelter who would be the one that is now financing the apartment that I live in. It did take some time for them to process everything, but it was surely worth the wait because they were talking about that they could only fund 3 months, but God had told me that he was going to take care of it, for a whole year. So I stood on that and they ended up calling me. They were like, look at some apartments. We have your financials here. We have it under control. Just you pick wherever you want to be at in Harris County. I ended up calling them to get a hold of that case manager. And she was like, we've been calling you. And I was like, I haven't received any calls. And she was like, that's so strange. We left you voicemails. It's like, literally, I haven't gotten any calls, any voicemails, nothing. And she's like, well, you know how we mentioned 3 months? Well, we actually got you covered for a full year. And I was like, what? In that moment, I was just like, he's a promise keeper. I heard him right. I heard him correctly. He meant what he said. That was truly him. That wasn't an emotion. That wasn't a thought of my own. It was actually him telling me. So it strengthened me. And I was like, yeah, this is it.
Somebody that you said you ordered, what is it, a Starbucks? Was it you ordered
Yeah, so she went and got it for me. And that's all that I had ordered that morning. So before she even got there, I was already like heavily
like
in
a
the presence of
DoorDash
God.
Uber Eats person?
I'm sorry?
She was a DoorDash, Uber Eats or
Yeah, she was an Uber Eats driver.
wow.
Yes, so
How did
I
that
had no
conversation
idea.
come about? How did that conversation come about?
So she got there late. So I was standing outside of the RV that I was living in at the time. I heard God telling me that I was gonna speak to her. So I was like, okay, Lord, whatever it is that you have, speak clearly and let it be you and not me. She got off of her car and she just laid out everything. She was like, I don't know what it was. She just kind of threw herself on me, like literally like hugged me and just cried and laid everything out. And I was just like, wow, how am I? And I was telling the Lord, how am I to comfort someone when I need comfort myself? And he said, well, this is what I sent you to do. Comfort others even when you're not comforted. So she was expressing to me how she was trying to escape domestic violence, and I had just experienced something with that, my ex, and I was trying to leave. I was trying to figure out how to leave. No money, nothing, no job. And she's like, well, I have this phone number. I got it when I got out of jail, and I've been calling them, and they told me that they can help me. I think they can help you. You have kids. You have kids. I was like, yeah, I have kids. And she was like, they will probably hit you first because you have children. They're for mothers. They're for,
This was a non-residential program through a
yeah.
violence shelter.
Yeah, because at that time I was in Channelview, Texas, and this shelter was, I believe, in Clear Lake.
If you don't mind me asking, was it Bay Area Turning Point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who's helping me.
I actually interviewed on the podcast Melissa from Bay Area Turning Point.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with their program. And I'm glad you brought that up because they do, and a lot of women, and so maybe there's someone who's going through something very similar that doesn't understand or realize that you don't always necessarily have to go stay out of shelter, that you can actually apply for the non-residential programs that they have.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that they also provide counseling sessions there. They provide you with a case manager. And that there's other resources out there too. If you're looking for counseling, I think there's Innovative Alternatives that offers 6 free, or maybe it's eight free counseling sessions with Innovative Alternative, which partners with Bay Area Turning Point as well. And
yeah, so I did get counsel too.
Yes, and so that's crazy, how, like I said, I'm very familiar with that program. And when you're talking about that, and I've seen that they've been able to help other women too, with those, because you're right, some of those resources are only for 3 months.
Yeah.
Very rarely do they have a program that can help for a year. That right there is a true testament on how God moves in order to get you, to tell you, I'm here. Like, I'm right here. I just need for you to be obedient. I need for you to relinquish your control and allow me to do what I need to do, so that you can do the things that you need to do in order to carry out what I'm asking you to do, right? So it's like God knows, and he positions himself in such a way. Now, mind you, my story is a story that took place 20 years ago. And so here I am now, fast forward, I ended up meeting my now husband, who's my husband. I have 2 children. I, as a single mom, ended up going back to school, graduated from college, and am now in my career and now have my own business. And so now, with that being said, you're now in this apartment, you're in this place now, and you're making things happen in your life. So talk to me a little bit about now how you've gone through all of that. You're in this place. How did you decide to be ordained?
So, I was very skeptical about going back to church. I was very ashamed. I was scared to show my face at church because I felt God. Because I had already been in church and was already growing and on fire, and I didn't want to show my face. But God, through a sermon that I watched on television, while I watched it, it was like something in me. I was like, I need that again. I need to congregate. I need to join forces again with the body of Christ. I can't isolate myself anymore. I gotta go. So I messaged Sister Lily, who she has always, bless her, she has always taken me open arms back when I misbehaved. So I messaged her and I was like, hey, um, it's me again, and mind you, she's always been there, always. So hey, how have you been? It's been a while. I was like, are you still doing Bible studies? I was like, you know what, maybe I should get my foot in there first. Maybe I should just go to Bible study first, start slow. So she's like, yeah, we're still having them. I would love for you to come. I have new girls here that would love to meet you. Very just loving, genuine, not even where have you been? It just, come on back. So I was like, okay, Lord, just give me this. Just let me start small. So I go to Bible study, and it's just like nothing happened. I felt warm love, care from every woman there. I felt welcomed. She didn't make me speak about anything, about what was going on. She didn't even ask. She just, let God flow, and continuously going as a group. She invited me to Apostle Tess's. It was a conference about mothers. I'm trying to think of what the name was. It was the power of a praying mother. And yeah, it was that one. And we were going to go as a group for the Bible study group. So that would have been that was my first conference I ever attended. So I was really excited. I was like, I was already filling myself up with the word. I was already I was already hearing him again. Clearly, the prophetic was coming back. My eyes spiritually were opening. Like, I was in the zone. So he had already been pressing on me, like, get ready, get ready. I'm about to shake you up. I'm about to do something new with you. So get ready at this conference. And so I was still kind of fighting with that thought of, am I going to mess up again? Am I going to keep pushing through, or am I going to mess up? So it's being hard on myself, like I'm feeling the fire again, but the enemy will always remind you of those things that that you've done in your past. So I'm like, no, I'm on fire. This is it. So I go to that conference, and I got so much confirmation from every woman there. It's like God was speaking through every woman. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And my pastor at the time, she's the co-pastor at the church that I attend. She was sitting next to me, and she just looked over at me, and she was like, this was so for you. This was so, I could feel God like here in this room with us. Like, this was for you, wasn't it? And I was like, yes, like I know for sure that I need to go. Like, for sure, this is it. I can do this. These women are giving, this was the hope that I needed. Remember, I told you I have been isolating myself, but this is the reason why we have to gather together, to hear these stories, to hear the hope, to hear how God, the hurt, the pain that these women pushed through, and they made it out. So I was like, wow, no woman in my life has that testimony. In my family, everybody stuck it out. Everybody took the beatings. And I said, heck no, that won't be me. So being in the midst of some powerful women, I was like, this is giving me strength. This is it. Like, I can do this, like, this is it. So when I met Apostle Tess and I shook her hand, and she was like, no, give me a hug, give me a hug, girl. Because she's so loving and everything. And that was my first time meeting her. So I was like, okay, here you go. And just seeing her boldness, seeing God in her, how he speak through her. I said, man, I admire this woman. Wow, like she spoke so eloquently but powerful, like eloquent but powerful. I was like, I need to be near this woman. I need to be near her, I like this. And God was like, well, you're gonna friend her on Facebook after you go home. I was like, okay. So I go and I friend her, and for a while, I'm pretty sure she's pretty popular. So she didn't get to get my friend request till like months later. I never took it personal because I understand she's a busy woman. So, but I followed her, so I was able to see like every update. And so it just stayed in my spirit. Like God told me I'm gonna be near her. Like he's like, you like her? I sent you here. This is a divine appointment. You're gonna be near her. And I was like, okay. So I followed her Facebook, always watched her lives, and sure enough, I got invited to speak at a women's class. It was called Brave and Beautiful at Grace Church. And I did not know that Apostle Tess was going to be there. So she was a guest speaker and so was I, but we both didn't know that we were going to be there. So that was my second time seeing her. So literally in that moment was when I was like, wow, okay, God, I don't know what you're up to, but I need you to be clear to me because you told me I was going to be around her again. Here we are. And it was such a beautiful moment, like God used her greatly. God spoke through me in a mighty way that I was like, this is not me. This was really an out of body experience. So right after that, I just pressed in the word, and that's whenever he told me, are you going to answer me now? Are you going to accept this call that I placed on your life? And I was like, well, what is that, Lord? What is it? Because I've wondered for so many years, why am I here? What am I here for? And that's when he was like, just, are you going to answer? And I was like, well, I don't know what I'm answering. And sure enough, a few days go by, and that's when she shared that she was doing the ordination training. And God's like, I want you to join, and you're going to be mentored under her. And this is where you're going to learn more. This is where you're going to be taught more. And this is where you're going to grow more, where you're going to learn a lot more about your gifts and what I'm going to do with you.
Wow.
But are you going to listen?
Yeah.
I need you to listen and be obedient. And so I said, yes, this is the next chapter in my life. This is the new starting point.
And I know that currently you're still in the midst, still going through things, because I know that in talking, you mentioned how, you've been laid off, how you're still going through some things that are going to get you there, that you're still going through a process, right? And like I said, I and in hearing your story just kind of reminds me of my humble beginnings, where I was still where God was truly in the midst of all of that. And I was just fully trusting him. And I knew that he was going to, get me out. And I know, and I could hear it and I could feel it, because I do see where God is really, and that's why I said, I got to hear you speak at one of her conferences. I said, this young lady has, very, our stories are very, very similar, and you always stayed in my mind, and I was like, I know that one day I'm gonna, get this young lady on the podcast. And here's the thing, we know you're not quite where you need to be yet. And we know that there's still things that God is still working through in your life. But in all of that, one of the things that I see is that you're still being obedient to where God is calling you. And God is still taking care of you. God is still providing for you in this season. And that's a blessing, that's a blessing, because
Yes.
I can see where God was still there in my life, even when I thought, oh my God, like I can't catch a break. But in reality, God was just growing us, and God is just growing you. God was growing me at that time. And I see where I'm sitting at now and where I see you sitting. I always like to look at it as a mirror reflection experience, because it's like, I know where you're at right now. I know what you've gone through, and I know that yours is still a little bit still fresh, but it's almost like God puts people in your life that have gone through what you're currently going through to show you what you are going to be in the future. Clearly came to me as we're sitting here is that God is going to use you in a mighty and powerful way. And where you are today is not where you're always going to be in. Like, I can see God using you. And like, when you're 20 years into your story, just as I am, you're going to be sitting before someone telling them, I am you in 20 years. You know?
Yeah.
I am you in 20 years. You know, like you're going to be me in 20 years. Sort of thing, like, this is what God is showing you today, is that this is you. I am your representation of yourself in 20 years. So, sister, I just want to say thank you so much for saying yes to God's calling. Thank you so much for being on here today to share your story of how God is using you today, and how God was showing you all along what you're going to be sharing with them, and how he's still prepping you and developing you into bigger and bigger platforms to be on. And so, sister, with that being said, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today and for being so open and transparent and sharing your story. If there's one thing that you could leave the listener that's hearing this today, what would that be?
For anybody, any woman that's listening to this right now, I would just want you to know that there is hope in Christ. You're not alone, even when you feel alone. He sees every tear. He hears every cry. He literally will pick you up and put you back together. Even if it's your third time, even if it's your fourth time, don't be afraid to go back. Don't be afraid to ask God to help you again. Number one, do not be afraid to go back to church. Do not care about what people are going to say. Keep your eyes fixed on the Lord, and he will give you those heart desires that he says in his word that he will. Those heart desires will flourish.
And if somebody wanted to get connected to you or with you, just to reach out to you and, and have a conversation, how could they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So as of right now, I only have Facebook. I think I'm going to go ahead and make an Instagram. But for now, I'm just Denise Rodriguez on Facebook.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much again, sister, for being on the show with me today and, just sharing your story with us. And amiga, if you're listening to this episode today, I just, and you feel like somebody could really benefit from this episode or resonate with the message, please share. Who knows where their life may be at right now. And so we just appreciate you so much for being on the show. For you listening, I just want to say thank you all so much for tuning in and listening today. And I can't wait to see y'all next week on the Mommy on a Mission podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mommy on a Mission podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your amigas. And before you go, if you're looking to dive deeper into healing, self-discovery, and walking in confidence, be sure to grab a copy of my book, Mommy on a Mission, A Guide Towards Healing, Self-Discovery, and Walking in Confidence, available now on Amazon. Stay connected with me on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Mommy on a Mission Podcast and on Facebook at Mommy on a Mission. If you're considering working with a coach but aren't sure if you're ready, send me a DM and I will send you a free gift to help you get started on your journey. Until next Saturday, keep shining and remember, the power is within you. Adios, amigas.